So, to follow on from last time, the big question becomes, how do we feel what we know about the earth? We're very good at being rational in our present culture, but how do we reach beyond that to the greater part of our being that includes our feelings, our emotions, our instincts? Because that, I believe, is the key to developing a true respect for the earth. The psychiatrist and polymath Ian McGilchrist believes that the people of Western culture at present have lost the use of part of our brains. He says that we're very good at using the left hemisphere of our brain, which is particularly good at focused analytical thought and thinking in systems, a sort of machine-like static view of the world. But we've lost the ability to use our right hemispheres, which sees the world as a whole, and crucially, which integrates knowledge and feeling. So, in this episode, I'm going to explore 4 attitudes that we can develop in our lives that will help us reach out beyond the rational to a greater sense of our relationship with the earth. And the first of those attitudes is gratitude. I came across this word reading actually the words of a scientist who has spent his life studying the world from a scientific point of view, had just written a major work, a really serious work about science, put down his pen only to discover that he himself had cancer. And I was moved by his words. He said, on realizing this, the overwhelming thing that he felt was an immediate gratitude. Gratitude for the experience of life. I like that. It connects for me in my head with the traditions of so many of the ancient societies around the world who have thought of the earth as the great mother, which for me is a very apt metaphor for our relationship with the earth, as we recognize that the life that we experience taps into that life that started so long ago when the very first cells were formed and has flowed down through the ages as a great stream of energy and organization through to the life that we have today. Gratitude feels like a very good thing to feel in response to that. The second attitude I would call appreciation. And it's appreciation of the power of the earth and deep time. I mean, we only live 70 years or so, don't we? And that's the sort of scale of time we think in. So how then, when someone says the first life was formed 3,500 million years ago, or thereabouts, how do we think about it? We find it very difficult to think about that. We need help. We need to appreciate it. Or the power of the earth. We might think of the great continental plates moving, as they're still doing today, forming mountains, volcanoes, the great power of the earth that occasionally we might experience in an earthquake or a storm or something, but most of the time we find it very difficult to experience. So, deep time, the power of the earth, we need to appreciate these things, which means, I think, that we have to dwell on them until they become part of our conscious awareness. Appreciation. Thirdly, I need to introduce this one to you. I'm aware that many of us, especially our young people today, are suffering from what we're calling eco-anxiety, a worry that things are going terribly wrong. We become aware that the climate is changing. We become aware of the destruction of the natural world. And we listen to the blah, blah, blah of our hapless politicians, and we know that tragedy is in store. Now, how do we approach this? How do we deal with our anxiety? I think many of us are, in a sense, already grieving for what is being lost. I think the third attitude, to do with our relationship with the earth, that actually we need to recognize is grief. Not that we should seek this, but that we will discover it. Grief is helpful to us because it can allow us to embrace the anxiety that we feel and therefore help stave off the depression that might otherwise sneak up on us. So, it might seem strange, but I think it might be proper at this time to allow ourselves to grieve. Okay, and so the fourth attitude I would call outside. Well, outside is not an attitude, is it? It's a place. But what I mean is that we might become people who want to be outside. Because to be outside is to expose ourselves to the earth. We might be going out for a walk, doing the garden, doing the allotment, whatever we might be doing, we are exposed to the earth. We are with all the creatures. And to expose ourselves like that regularly, intimately, with the earth and all it throws at us in it's raining now. We've just had a great storm. All it throws at us is humbling. But it's part of our relationship with the earth. So, 4 attitudes: gratitude, appreciation, grief, and outside. That can become perhaps part of a spirituality. Each of them actually has a public, a communal face. So, gratitude could easily lead to festival, to celebration. Appreciation of the power of the earth and deep time could stimulate the creative arts and meditation together. Being outside is naturally sociable, isn't it? And that naturally social, we meet with other people. We enjoy working together, as we do here, and work together in our park. It's a naturally social thing. And of course it's social in the sense of being with all the other creatures, as well as the human beings. And grief. Grief might have a social aspect too. Some people say that it's hard to grieve on your own, that you need to share it with others. And I think that might be particularly true about our grief. about our relationship with the natural world. I wonder if it isn't time to consider public acts of mourning, people turning out to mourn our relationship with the earth. That these wouldn't be demonstrations. These wouldn't be, they wouldn't have lots of placards and what do we want, when do we want it. There wouldn't be acts of disruption, just people silently turning out, dressing, being, people who are mourning. I wonder if that will happen. It could be an extraordinary sign to this culture, I believe. Acting like an earthquake with foreboding about the future, but changing, but transformative, not only of ourselves who might participate, but of the culture in which we are placed. So, a spirituality that has an inner and an outer dimension, that is really about developing a deep respect for the earth, and also perhaps love for the earth. Because respect and love, they go together really, don't they? All this hovers in my mind around the idea of the earth as sacred, but in a modern sense. So wholly compatible with science and building on the foundation of science, yet reaching out into this spirituality which feels our relationship with the earth with the deepest respect, even with awe and dread, as well as love and intimacy. Such a spirituality, I think, could set us on fire, light us up, energize us like nothing else. And where would that lead? What would that become? Well, that's for next time, where I hope to begin to think how we can translate such a spirituality, such an energy, into something practical that will make a real difference in this world today. See you soon.